So let's move on to the next segment of the day. And that, for me, is the most exciting segment. And that is because this is my biggest holding. Yep, this is my biggest altcoin bag. And this is a protocol called Arweave, a file storage protocol called Arweave. So why am I so excited about this file storage protocol, which has very, very, very little hype? Well, let me tell you why I'm so excited. If you do have Arweave, tell me in the comments. If you don't, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get yourself some Arweave, because I'm going to tell you why my thesis is that Arweave is my best call for the altcoin market. It's got no hype. It's not one of these tokens that's going to 10x in a day. It's a slow and steady coin. And in fact, if you look at the price of Arweave, the price of Arweave is up today when most other tokens are down. And that says something to me. That says that this is a very solid token. It's not a hype token. It's not going to double. But it does fulfill a very, very important need. And that's because today we're living in an age where the sitting president of the United States has been banned from most social networks. And what this shows is it shows that these big platforms, they can do whatever they want with you and with your data. One day you're on Twitter, and the next day you may be kicked off Twitter. One day you have data on Google or Microsoft Azure, and then they may not like your data, and your data may be gone. And this brings into this limelight the need for decentralization. And if you look at what the tech companies have done in the last couple of days, what they've done is they've flexed their muscle, and they've showed the world who's actually got the power. Is it the president, or is it these big social networks with a network effect? Well, quite clearly, we can see that it's the latter. And these social media companies really control the narrative. In fact, when was the last time you heard anything from Trump? And that's because he really has no platform to talk. And this is a sitting president of the United States. And the same can happen to you. Your data may be taken by Microsoft Azure. Your data may be taken off Amazon Web Services. And that's why, for me, the decentralized web can't come fast enough. And if it's going to come, we need file storage. Because file storage is a massive market. File storage today is a $150 billion market a year. And the big players in the market are Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and of course, Alibaba Cloud. In the decentralized world, the decentralized file storage companies include Filecoin, which raised over $257 million in their ICO in 2017, and they recently launched their mainnet. You've got storage, you've got SIA, and then, of course, you've got Arweave. Now, whereas Filecoin, SIA, and storage all go head-to-head with Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Alibaba, they all charge per amount per unit time, or they charge per contract. And Arweave has a completely different approach. Arweave charges a once-off fee and stores your data forever. And so they call this the Permaweb. And there are no other file storage players in the world that are targeting permanent storage. In fact, Arweave has a complete monopoly on this. Now, if you want to know what the advantages of file storage are, well, of course, it should be cheaper, because what you're doing is you're storing files not on a centralized node, but on a whole lot of nodes. And you're using excess capacity. And theoretically, that should make file storage rates cheaper. But more important than that is it prevents censorship, because you can store your stuff forever and it's decentralized and no one can delete it because it's stored on some kind of blockchains. So who would use this? Well, the first application for Permaweb, or for permanent storage, of which Arweave's version is called Permaweb, is storing internet data. Now, if you're like me, you thought that internet data was stored forever, and it's not. In fact, 90% of the internet's data is deleted every 20 years. That means that if you thought that the information on the internet was safe, well, actually, it's not. So the first use case of permanent storage, or the Permaweb, is actually storing the internet. Then let's move on to blockchains. Where are we going to store all this blockchain data that we need to store forever? Well, Arweave has started to integrate into some of the bigger blockchains. So it has real world adoption. Let's look at one more use case, and that is journalism. If you look at journalism today, a lot of journalists risk their stories being removed. And in some countries, and even in the US, a lot of stories are getting removed. And these are stories that are researched by journalists and just don't match the narrative that the big tech companies or the governments want them to match. And so a big use case of the Permaweb is of course journalism. So Arweave already has a lot of adoption, and if you look at their adoption, they've got protocols like Scale and Solana who have already adopted the Arweave protocol. They've also integrated into Uniswap, into SushiSwap, and into Yearn Finance, or into Yearn Finance. And so this project really has adoption already, and people are starting to catch on to it. Now, let's look at who's behind this project. Well, the project was founded by a guy called Sam Williams. Now, I know Sam, and he's one of the smartest guys you've ever met. And the project was backed, and it was backed by some of the biggest names in crypto. In fact, it was backed by Andreessen Horowitz, Multicoin Ventures, and of course, Coinbase Ventures. And that's led everybody to believe that maybe Arweave will be listed on Coinbase soon. Now, I think that Arweave may actually be listed on Coinbase, not only because Coinbase Ventures invested in Arweave, but also because it's a real project with a real use case, and the token is definitely a utility token. The one downside they've got is that they've only got 66 million tokens in circulation, and those aren't circulated amongst the big crypto community. In fact, this project doesn't really nurture a big crypto community. They're much more focused on actually getting their tech built and getting their use cases into the market, as opposed to creating hype. And that's why most people probably haven't even heard of Arweave, and those that have struggle to buy the tokens on these illiquid exchanges. And that's because the big VCs are holding these tokens tight. No one is ready to sell them. In fact, Andreessen, Coinbase, and Multicoin bought their tokens in a recent round where the valuations weren't that different from where the rounds are today. Let's look at the valuation of Arweave. So the valuation of Arweave today, let me call up the Arweave file. The valuation of Arweave today at a token price of $3.53 on a fully diluted basis is just $233 million. And whereas we don't know exactly how to value crypto tokens yet, let's look at one of the competitors, and that is Filecoin. If you look at Filecoin, Filecoin has a fully diluted market cap of $45 billion. Now, that means that Arweave is trading at about 0.5% of Filecoin's market cap. 0.5% of Filecoin's market cap, you're taking a great bet at $230 million that Arweave may actually succeed. And if you've been watching their progress, they've got the right investors, they've got real-world adoption, blockchains are already starting to use them, and their protocol works. What they're lacking is they're lacking all the crypto hype. And I think their thesis is that they don't need the crypto hype if they're going to succeed. They'd rather get their project working and people actually using their tokens, and that's how they're going to get real-world adoption.